So I'm going to show you a couple of different ways we can use something called a fillet function. Now, fillet is a way of rounding off what would otherwise be a sharp edge on a design. So for example, if I was to look at the cube here, then all these sharp edges, I could use the fillet function to round those off. Now, I'm just going to go back to my untitled, and I'm going to create a sketch and start with that basic sketch there, so my square. Now if I go into my modify menu here, you'll notice the trim tool we used in the previous lessons has this rounded corner, and that's a fillet. Okay, so click on that one. Now what you'll find is if you hover over one of the corners on this, a red line comes up which will give you a possible rounded corner. Now I might say I want that to be 5mm. And so it'll just give a really small rounded edge there. I could click on that edge there and this edge here, and that has the same effect, that I can then click on that arrow and just move it in. Now what you'll notice is if I go past my excuse me, if I go past that original fillet, then it can sort of do weird things to the design I'm trying to create. So you need to be mindful of what effects the fillet you're drawing may have on other parts of your design. Okay, so from there I've created a shape which has a couple of rounded edges on that, and of course if I then press Q, and I could extrude that out by 5mm or 10mm or whatever, and I end up with a solid shape, and that design sort of comes through, those edges come through like that. Now the other thing I can do is I can click on one of the edges on here, or a number of the edges on here, and I can use the fillet function in my modify menu. So this is when I'm in the solid workspace, in the modeling workspace. And I can click on that edge, and just as I could before, I can drag on an arrow there. Okay, so I can put a 30mm radius on that and press enter. I could also click on that rounded edge there, and what you notice happening now is the two fillets might start to interfere with each other, and it can sort of create unexpected shapes. So you need to be mindful of that when you're doing this as part of your design, that it may end up with something that you just don't actually want. And the other thing that sometimes happens when we're doing fillets is I might try to create something which is just impossible. So you notice the error that's coming up there. The fillet or chamfer could not be created at the requested size, might be occurring at the selected edges. So basically we can see up here there's an edge which is giving us problems. It may be that some of the shapes you just can't actually do. It'll just confuse Fusion too much. So just be aware that that might be an issue. But have a little play around with that. I'm just going to back out of this, go back to my cube, and go to your cube design or create another cube design and just play around with this fillet function and see what you can do with it. Okay. And when you finish that, save your design to your practice shapes area and then move on to the next part of their workbook.